Well, good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock. I'll call this meeting to order. And as council will notice, the flag is in the center of the room this morning for something we're going to try something a little different here so that everyone can face the flag. It has concerned me for a little while that probably the representatives on this side of the room can't even see the flag when we're all standing up. So we're going to put the flag in the center of the room and we're going to sing "O Canada" this morning towards the center. So let's do that.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Councillor Mackey.
Present.
Councillor McKay.
Here.
Councillor Carlton. Councillor Pringle. Councillor McQueen. Councillor Nielsen.
Here.
Councillor Patterson. Councillor Dickert. Councillor Kentner. Councillor Keaveney. Councillor Body. Councillor Gregg. Warden Milne.
Present.
Councillor Dolbreen. Councillor Matrosovs. Councillor Bourdignon.
Present.
Councillor Bonaparte is in attendance. Councillor Eccles. Councillor Hutchinson. We have all members participating today.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And before we begin, I want to respectfully acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. And further, we give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, known collectively as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of these lands and waters. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and friendship with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Is there any declaration of interest related to any item on today's agenda? Not seeing one. If one arises, you can declare it at that time. We have a couple sets of minutes there from our council meeting and committee of the whole meeting of February 22nd. Would someone please move adoption of those minutes? Councillor Mackey and Councillor Eccles. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We have no closed meeting matters. We have a report here, the minutes of the Grey Bruce Public Health from November 4th. Someone care to move receive of those minutes? Councillor Carlton, second by Councillor Hutchison. And the good Dr. Era is online. Dr. Era, good morning. There he is. If you'd like to make some comments, by all means, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Council. The highlight from the update from recent meetings is 3 items. One of them is related to strengthening public health and specifically the voluntary measures. The Board of Health in its most recent meeting approved the Executive Committee's recommendation to reach out formally to the neighboring health unit, the 3 health unit that has land border with Grey Bruce, to explore their potential position on the merger with Grey Bruce. And in the same item, the board directed to reach out to the ministry and request more information and presentation to the board on the merger potential and the future of it. At this point, it is voluntary merger, but there could be different stages that are non-voluntary. The second item is related to the board approving the budget for 2024 with 1% increase to the municipal contribution to match the 1% increase from the ministry's contribution. And the final item is just an update about the measles situation in the province. There has been a number of cases and transmission related to travel, mostly people who arrived with measles, but due to the lower than usual coverage of vaccine for measles, we have seen a number of events of transmission. In Grey Bruce, there has not been an active case. Nevertheless, our team has been following up with people who are exposed to cases in other parts of the province, but at this point, there's no active case in Grey Bruce. That's my update, Mr. Chair. Open to questions as always.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Dr. Aaron? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Doctor, for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of receiving the minutes? That is carried. Thank you very much. We have one bylaw here regarding the budget tax policy. Bylaw to establish tax policy and levy taxes for upper tier purposes for the year 2024. So someone care to move that, please? Councillor Dickert and Councillor Pringle. Councillor Greg.
Thanks, Warden Milne, just for the opportunity to speak to this. Just procedurally is my question here today. I don't have a problem with the bylaw itself. However, we originally had a deputation on the tax policy by Peter Freese start of February. And procedurally, one cannot enter into a debate with a individual making a deputation. We didn't actually have a formal recommendation or a report as part of that. So I was surprised just to see the bylaw already before council here today, being that we did not have that intermediate report to go from the deputation to the recommendation to the subsequent bylaw as per council direction. So like I say, this year I don't have a problem with the tax, the levy rates within it. But I did certainly have that question as to how we got here, going from a deputation to right to the bylaw.
I'll ask CO Wingrove to respond to that, please.
Thanks very much, Councillor Greg. We have engaged with what was formerly MTE, but Peter Freese to provide his very in-depth expertise on the matters of tax policy for this council and for senior staff for a number of years. I apologize to everyone if the intent of having him present that information to council was not clear. Certainly, I think we spent an extended period of time with Peter in his presentation, and much more than what we would do. It's just a simple delegation. But this is certainly something that we're going to think about with the Budget and Finance Committee and going forward. If we want to handle this a little bit differently in the future, we can certainly do that, and we'll make sure that that gets covered as part of the whole budget and finance process in the future. So thank you for those comments.
Thank you, Kim. Any other questions? Councillor Eccles.
When it comes time to vote, I would request a recorded vote on this, please.
Sure. Any further comments, questions? Okay, Madam Clerk, can you take the poll, please?
Councillor Mackey,
In favor.
Councillor Mackey is in favor. Councillor McKay,
In favor.
Councillor McKay in favor. Councillor Carlton. In favor. Counselor Carlton in favor, Counselor Pringle. Counselor Pringle in favor, Counselor McQueen. Counselor McQueen in favor, Counselor Nielsen.
In favor?
Counselor Nielsen in favor, Counselor Patterson. Counselor Patterson in favor, Counselor Dickert. Counselor Dickert in favor, Counselor Kentner. Counselor Kentner's in favor, Counselor Keaveney. Counselor Keaveney is in favor, Counselor Body. Counselor Body in favor, Counselor Gregg. Counselor Gregg in favor, Warden Milne.
In favor.
Warden Milne is in favor, Counselor Dobreen. Counselor Dobreen in favor, Counselor Matrosovs. Counselor Matrosovs in favor, Counselor Bordignon.
In favor.
Counselor Bordignon in favor, Counselor Eccles. Counselor Eccles in favor, Counselor Hutchinson. Counselor Hutchinson in favor. That bylaw has carried 96-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next bylaw and the final one is the confirming bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of this council. Counselor Patterson moves, Counselor Dobreen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. News and celebrations. Who would like to go? Counselor Keaveney, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and I just wanted to take a brief second to thank you for attending our sesquicentennial 150th anniversary kickoff on Sunday. No, your very thoughtful message was appreciated. You've done a lot of research on me to prepare your greetings, and that was greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. And I'd be lying if I didn't say I had some help, which I did. But thank you for the kind comments nonetheless. Anyone else? Counselor McQueen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Warden and County Council. Just a reminder that in a few days, St. Paddy's Day will be celebrated. And I had to go all the way to Ireland to get socks that match my tie. So happy St. Paddy's Day.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Oh. CL Wingrove.
Well, good morning again, County Council. And this morning, I would like to celebrate a very special member of the Grey County team. Sandra Shipley, our Human Resources Manager, has been an invaluable asset to Grey County for 30 years and is retiring at the end of the month. Where are you, Sam? Come on up here. In her role, Sam has played a critical role in supporting this organization and its people through changes large and small. Her knowledge and expertise of all of the technical aspects of HR management, payroll, pensions, WSIB is unsurpassed. Sam is magically able to instantly recall not only the details of all of our current collective agreements, but the previous ones and why they changed. The new HR information management system has a very high standard to meet. On behalf of all of us, Sam, thank you for 30 wonderful years, for your tireless commitment to doing the best for Grey County. We owe you a tremendous amount of thanks and you will be missed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
I just want to say I'll just do this. There we go. I would just like to say I'm very thankful for my career at Grey. I started in June of 1993, just before the social contract legislation had passed. 26 members of council then and not even 300 employees. So we've grown significantly over that time. And I'm very thankful for the way I've been allowed to progress in my career and all the friends and family I've got here at Grey County, and I'll certainly take all that friendship with me. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. And I just wanted to add my personal thanks to you as well. You've done a tremendous job here and we'll miss you. Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn. Oh, Counselor DeBreen, did you have something? Motion to adjourn from the council meeting? Thank you. Seconder? Counselor McQueen, all those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Just move over to the committee of the whole. Thank you, Rob. Thank you. I'll call the committee of the whole meeting to order. Is there any declaration of interest related to any item on this budget? Not seeing any. We have it. Sorry? What did I say? Sorry, this agenda, not this budget. Glad somebody's paying attention. Yep. Well, there's so much that could be said, but I'm not going there this morning. So, all right, let's move on to, we have a delegation this morning. Gupta is going to introduce our guest this morning. So come on up, Deepika. Welcome.
Good morning, County Council. Today, I would like you all to introduce to a very special project, and that's an initiative which is very close to GB Lip's heart. That's Penciling It In project, initiated by two wonderful young community members. And I personally would like to thank Kim to take this initiative on to be, to present here. And these members are Ayla Graham and Gia Kukreja. At GB Lip, we recognize the importance of sharing and preserving the stories of immigrants who have journeyed here from all over the world to seek better life. And this project has provided a platform to share those success stories. And most importantly, three things in the project is the unique narratives, like each one is different. Highlighting their challenges and community support and the contribution of immigrants to Grey Bruce region. GB Lip is supporting this initiative in terms of community outreach and sharing this important resource with our over 67 stakeholders. We have brought some books for all of you as well. And I personally believe that amplifying and sharing these narratives and experiences will help our community to understand and embrace the diversity that really is now trying to define us. I would like to welcome Ayla, who is here with us, and Gia could not join us in person as she's away for some work. And we have their video recording.
Is it on? Okay. Yeah, we have a video. I'm here on behalf of Gia and myself to represent the Pencil Project. And to include Gia, we do have a video recording of our presentation that we would like to share with you guys. And then I'm here for questions after as well.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share our exciting initiative. My name is Gia.
My name is Ayla.
And we are the project coordinators for the Pencil Project.
The inspiration for this project was driven from statistics showing that the Grey and Bruce counties had low immigration retention rates. Upon conducting our own research, we concluded that the individuals that do decide to move away from the area choose to do so as they are unaware of the resources. Moreover, they feel alone in their journey of immigration. So we asked ourselves, how could we help with the problem?
We created the Pencil Project in hopes the stories collected would highlight the opportunities available in the Grey and Bruce counties while increasing immigration retention rates. They would also serve as an inspiration to newcomers. We collected success stories of first-generation immigrants and published them in a book titled Penciling It In. It was our hope that community members become more aware of resources implemented in these counties that can help others in their immigration journey.
This project holds importance for us as we are both first-generation immigrants ourselves.
My parents moved to Canada in 2015 to provide me with opportunities to become successful in life. My parents were well off in India. When we came here, I watched them struggle. To begin, my parents struggled to get employment in the area. That's stressful because they both know that they needed to provide for their family. As for me, I struggled in my own ways. I faced my own challenges like language and culture shock that I needed to overcome. My parents' work ethic inspired me. Gray and Bruce counties are truly welcoming and supporting of individuals who are starting a new chapter in their lives.
I immigrated to Canada from China at the age of 2. I was adopted by a Caucasian family, and coming at such a young age prevented me from having some of the more common barriers immigrants face, such as language and employment issues. However, a factor that I did majorly face was a lack of culture. I was able to connect with certain community members and had the opportunity to learn more about my culture growing up. What's interesting is that both Gia and my story were very different from each other, but this was something we wanted to embrace was the differences of these immigrants and while creating diversity and inclusion. We also had the inspiration to focus more on the success that they've had rather than their negative experiences.
Let's discuss the process of this initiative. The timeline for this initiative was from June of 2023 to January 2024. This consisted of promotional, outreach, fundraising, and community engagement activities. Following these, the formation of the book's publication began in December and was completed in January.
We started this project by planning out finances and reaching out to organizations who would support our initiative by recommending community members as candidates for our book. We applied to several grants, started this GoFundMe, and received many private donations. We were able to reach our goal and printed 200 copies of the book published by Quick Print, which was a local business in Owen Sound.
We would like to thank the following organizations who have helped and supported our project. A special thank you to the YMCA Settlement Services, Gray Bruce Local Immigration Partnerships, and the Gray Bruce Welcome Communities for their contribution. The Owen Sound Library has also generously offered us their space for the book launch without any costs. Moreover, local businesses like the European Bakery have donated food for the event. We could not have done this project without their support.
The promotional aspect consists of using different marketing channels such as a website, social media platforms, and presentations to promote this initiative. An Instagram and Facebook account were created. Booths were set up at different events to promote the project as well, and a website, pencilproject.ca, was also set up. It highlighted who we are and the goal of the Pencil Project. On the website, there's also a place where you can leave any inquiries or email for contact. Moreover, we had advertisements placed for our project throughout the community and media.
Lastly, we would like to formally invite all of you to our book launch on March 28th. It will be held at Owen Sound Public Library from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Signed copies of the book and food will be available as well. Please feel free to bring your friends and family.
If you're interested in supporting our project, we are fundraising to do a second printing of roughly 200 copies of the book.
Thank you for your time today. These are the following resources where you can contact us if you have any questions. You can also find more information about the initiative from this QR code that is linked to our website called pencilproject.ca.
Thank you for that presentation, and I see the books have been distributed to council members, and thank you for those. It has it's long been a question of mine in a former capacity. I used to see people that were probably immigrants to Canada, and I'd ask them, why Canada? Why here? And the stories were amazing that I'd hear from people of why they would uproot themselves, their family, and leave everything they've known and held dear and come here. I've long said that the best Canadian is a well-traveled Canadian, because we don't appreciate what we have until it's gone. But I'm looking forward to looking through the stories here in the book, because I think it'll be very illuminating as to why we have such a great country here that we do. All right, enough for me. Any questions for Isla? Right? Isla, yes. I had an Aunt Isla, so that name is easy for me. Kim, go ahead.
Pilot, I think there's another part to this project that we really want to celebrate. Can you say a few words about the DECA organization and the competition that you're part of?
So we created this project underneath DECA guidelines, and DECA is an extracurricular, and it's
a business competition. So we competed at provincials, which was held in Toronto, and we had to do a business proposal as well as a 15-minute presentation. And then we qualified for internationals. So we will be attending internationals in Anaheim, California at the end of April.
Well, we certainly wish you the best of luck in that. Counselor Greg, you have a question?
Well, I think you did an amazing job on this project, so we better ask a couple questions. You mentioned early on about people moving away from Grey Bruce counties. I would think that would be quite a challenge to maintain connections and be informed about why people moved away. So how were you able to connect with these people that had moved away from our area that you were using as a resource and kind of a central part of your project? Maybe the answers are in the book, but perhaps if you know them right now, that'd be great. Thank you.
We analyzed different statistics from Statistics Canada, as well as a local organization that sort of just said a lot of people were moving away. So they showed like the amount of people that were coming in during a certain year and then the same amount that were leaving. And we found that there was a modest net increase of the amount of people leaving. And then from GNI's research, we conducted a survey of community members to kind of see how aware of the resources available for newcomers they were. And we found that the general idea was that people weren't aware of resources. So we concluded that a lot of the reason was for not being aware of these resources.
Any other questions? Counselor Kentner.
I just, is there anything we as individuals can do, because we're all interested in our immigrants, but we find it hard to really jump in and assist it. What's the easiest or most practical thing we can do to support and especially to encourage them to stay in Grey Bruce? Thank you.
I think the biggest thing would be better promotion for these resources. In the last 2 pages of the book, we did dedicate different resources and ways you can contact these resources as well. And I think the newcomer services within Grey and Bruce counties are the most important things for these immigrants coming here.
Counselor Eccles.
Thank you, Warden Millen, and through you to Isla. As you said, was there any research on where individuals were going when they were leaving Grey Bruce? Thank you for the book, but I'm sometimes called a speed reader, but I haven't read it through yet, so I don't know. Yeah, and I guess, you know, why they would move away, because there's 16 councillors sitting around this table that believe Grey County, you can't get anything better in Canada than right here in Grey County. But as you said, the immigrants are here and then moving away. So was there any idea of where they were going and possibly why?
We didn't look into specific statistics of where they were going, but we did have some candidates who shared family members who decided to not stay in the Grey Bruce counties. And their main reasoning was going towards bigger cities where they would have more of the same culture present there, or even just access to some of their cultural foods too. So kind of just the sense of having other people like similar to you rather than in a small rural community.
Thank you. Any other questions? Jennifer.
If I may, through you, Warden Milne, to Isla. I am the director of long-term care for the county, and we have 3 long-term care homes, and we are welcoming on a much more regular basis new Canadians as our team members, but also as our residents. And I just love this project, and I wanted to make a formal invitation when you're back, perhaps from the competition, if you would come and meet with our residents and some of our teams. We're doing work on equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And I think this is a really wonderful local initiative that we would like to bring into the home. So I'll extend that invitation formally. I'll follow up in email, but great job. Thanks for this.
Thank you for that opportunity, and I will definitely let Gia know, and we're very interested.
Counselor Mattress.
Thank you. Through you, the warden, as the daughter of 2 immigrants, I very much appreciate the work that you are doing here. And wondered on that same note, if it's a possibility, could our local libraries approach you for a speaking opportunity to share more about it? I'm thinking in particular because of the way in which libraries operate as community hubs and are often the first place people start to drop in to get to know other people, but also because of the literary value as well. The fact that you've actually produced a book, it would be wonderful if we knew the story behind it before it goes on one of our shelves.
Yes, definitely. Gia and I's hope was to distribute these books to all public libraries within Gray and Bruce counties, as well as schools. So we've distributed them to Bruce County, but we're currently about to go on a road trip once Gia comes back to distribute these books to public libraries within the Gray County. And then we would also love the opportunity to speak at certain libraries if that would be something we'd like.
Gray County road trip, right on. I don't remember distributing books in any of the tours I took, but anyway, nonetheless, sounds like fun. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you, Isla. Thank you so much for your presentation this morning, and extend our thanks to Gia as well.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I would just like to add what Isla has just mentioned about 2 questions here. Councillor was asking about what as an individual we can do. GBLIP has developed a positive messaging campaign where the main focus is just to smile. I think as an individual, if we, build that individuality of like just to smile at your neighbors. So we have developed that campaign with great resources, which is on our website, and we have shared with our partners as well, including all municipalities. So as an individual, I just say that if you just smile, that will help them stay. So I know other challenges are there, but that is the process. And to your question, Councillor, why they are going and where they are going, we will be able to find that out soon by the end of March 31st, because we have, GBLIP has done first of its immigrant survey for 2023. And we have all these questions that how they see themselves in the next 5 to 10 years. Do they see themselves here? If yes, why? If not, why? So just to add on there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deepika. Councillor Keaveney.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And that just brings to mind a thought, Deepika, something to consider perhaps at the county level, a project that we're undertaking in Meaford for our 150th, which is a hello campaign. And every week we are asked to say hello in a different language. This week is Korean. I can't pronounce it, but there is a poster in Meaford that has the 52 different languages and how to say hello. And we're all doing that, just hello. So just to add to the smile, if that might be a project you'd like to consider.
We have been in connection with Mary Solomon from Meaford, who has initiated, I guess, this another project called Diversity Forest as well, and community gardens. And we have been in constant touch with her, and we will really appreciate if we can somehow connect and push this message forward throughout Bruce. Thank you.
All righty, thank you so much. Next item of business is the consent agenda. Is there any determination of items requiring separate discussion? Oh, I need a mover and seconder, sorry. Councillor Hutchison, Councillor DeBreen. Councillor Nielsen wants to pull an item. Okay.
I do.
Oh, there he is there. Go ahead, Dane. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Warden Milne. I'd like to pull 6A, please.
6A, okay. Any others? All right, so the motion is to receive all of those, save and accept 6A. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on, items for direction and discussion. Support outreach services. Kevin McNabb is going to give a verbal update on that, that particular project. Kevin, welcome. Good morning.
Morning, council. Morning, Warden. Let me bring the presentation up. Great, thanks. I just wanted to come today and give you a bit of an update on supportive outreach services and really to say thanks as well as due to some changes. But I was thinking about this actually when I put this slide together, and I don't think we've talked about this yet. And I think that we should talk about it because it's a really good story and for work that's really tough and need hope. This picture here is a logo that we use for SOS, and it's come up for 3 years now that we've had SOS, and we talk about people with recovery. And the story with this is a young man that had addiction problems and he connected with the team. And this person now is reconnected back with his family, working full time. And he wanted to give back to SOS. And he developed this for us. So this is our motto. We think about it every day. And it's just a good way to start, I think, to what the works that's happening on the street, because it is tough. So we had recently had some changes within SOS, and we really wanted to reach out and say thanks to the city of Owen Sound and the Owen Sound Farmers Market. When we first started SOS, it was started in Hanover, and then we moved fairly quickly to Owen Sound. They welcomed us with open arms to the market downtown, which was a perfect place for us to offer our services. And we've been there for a couple of years, and it's been a great location for us, especially being in the downtown to offer services to people. We go there every 2 weeks. We see between 120 and 150 people and make connections with them. And these are all our partners that come together, over 25 partners now. Between municipalities, health system providers, and then also our charitable organizations that come together. And we meet every 2 weeks too. And there's no mandate for people to come, but our operations meeting's full every 2 weeks. We have it for an hour. And our whole sole goal is to support people in the community that are homeless or precariously housed that have mental health and addictions. So I just wanted to say thank you to Owen Sound for having us there for the last couple of years and all their support. And I can't say enough about Owen Sound, Hanover, Meaford, West Grey, and Southgate that give us a place to meet and connect with people. So, but we have had some change, and it came from a suggestion with O'Share. They recently had some changes within their building that's going to allow us an improved location for people to come together to sit, better temperature regulation for heat and cold, and accessible washrooms. And something that we've really been missing is a private space to do adequate health assessments and counseling. So O'Share's opened their doors to us, and we're so excited to be a part of them and be there with them at our markets now. Everybody can still fit. It's roughly the same size. And you can see around the corner in the back, there's actually a separate room now where our nurse practitioner and most likely in the future a physician and our paramedics and our mental health counselors will be able to treat people. And there'll be a washroom right off of there if we're doing urine testing and stuff like that. People don't have to walk through a bunch of places to get their urine tested. And it's just a really nice location. And we're so thankful to O'Share for volunteering that space. And we've got to love a good community. Owen Sound Family Health Team, they heard about this and working with Dr. Cox and our nurse practitioner, Heather practitioner. They've actually donated an assessment bed, which, us as paramedics, we're used to working on our stretcher and on the ground, but Heather, our nurse practitioner, likes her assessment bed, and I'm sure Dr. Cox will too. But we have that now in our room, and they give us all the equipment to go along with it. We just had a bit of labor to get it there, but it was all free. And looking forward to that. And the goal is we offer this every 2 weeks, but we're working on some ways to connect with people outside of that to offer primary care for people that are unattached. To give them healthcare and addictions therapy and mental health supports. So really good news. And again, thanks to everybody for this work to happen. Everybody has to work together. It can't happen just one organization. It takes multiple organizations, people coming together to support. And again, like we go back to that first story of that model, there is hope and there is recovery. And again, but it takes all those people to do it.
Like I say, Kevin, got to love a good community. But it takes leaders such as yourself to make it happen too. So thank you for your efforts. Any questions on that particular item? Don't see any, but again, thank you very much, Kevin. Next item is a response time performance plan results for 2023. Kevin's going to be talking to that one as well. I need a mover and a seconder, Councillor DeBreen and Councillor Kentner. Kevin, welcome again.
I've heard a couple comments this morning about me versus Scott, and you're stuck with me till lunch. So, anyways, it once wouldn't have been bad, but I've heard it a couple times now, so I'm aware of it. So, I will try not to take too much of your time. So, the recommendation that this report be received for the response time performance plan results, and that we communicate these results by March 31st, 2024. So each year, we put together a response time performance plan targets in the summer, and we have to submit them before the end of October. And then in March of every year, we have to reply and post those results on a public website. We send them to the ministry and they put them up. Our response times, this new plan that, or it's not new anymore, but this version of plan has been around since 2012. And it was determined based upon what the response times were at that time to meet these targets. Before that was what they called the 1996 percentile. And at that time for code 4 calls, it was 15 minutes and 54 seconds. And if you hear us talk about 15 minutes a lot, that's really where it comes from. There's a lot of history with that. So paramedic services performance is measured based on achieving targets across the 5 CTAS categories and sudden cardiac arrest for code 4 life-threatening calls. Despite our rising call volume, and I look back, we're twice as many code 4s than we were even in 2004. We've never increased our targets. We've improved upon them. We took our target for 8 minutes or less for CTAS 1s from 50 to 60%, and our CTAS 3 and 4 and 5 from 30 minutes to 20 minutes. As far as call volume goes, just an update on that. Our call volume was the busiest year yet, was 15,046 calls. When we looked at the modeling last fall, we were thinking around 1%, so it came in a bit under that, 0.64. But if you look here, it's 26.9% over the last 5 years. And if you look at the RH recommendations, it's probably about 5.8 it averages out. The thing with call volumes, you can't really just look at 1 year in a row. You have to look at multiple years, because we may have a 1% 1 year, or even a year where we actually have a reduction in calls. Then the next year, you're up 10%. So it's really over a period of time that we look at this. And again, we're happy that call volume didn't go up any more than what it did, but then we'll take 1% or even a reduction if we can. But it's hard to predict just 1% of what's going to look like going on, but we will continue to evaluate it. Around priority codes, we just put this here just to help define, because it does get people mixed up with CTAS versus priority codes dispatched. This is what a paramedic would hear when they're being dispatched. So code 1 is a transfer, or what's called a deferrable call. Code 2 call is a transfer, but with a book time. Code 3 is what we call a prompt call, which is an emergency, but it can be responded to with a delay. But that patient's deemed to be stable or under professional care and not in immediate danger. The code 4 call is the most urgent, where time is of the essence, where it's like cardiac arrest, chest pain, strokes, major traumas. Those are the ones where we focus our energy, and these people are in immediate danger and time is crucial. So our targets are broken down into sudden cardiac arrest and CTAS 1 to 5. Sudden cardiac arrest is determined that by the ministry of 6 minutes that we have to be there. And then we look back at our history of and see what our success rate is on that. And we were determined at the time this be 40% of the time. I know that doesn't sound like a high percentage, but when you look at what it takes, because that's really only what a 5-minute drive time, you have to look at your bases and how much you can cover. The next is determined by the ministry too, is 8 minutes, and we set the percentile. We can get a little further. Again, we can cover about 60% of the time that we can be there. The CTAS 2 to 5 is established by the municipality and approved by the ministry, and we're able to set those targets. And those targets have been in place other than when we improved upon them in 2015, where CTAS 2 is 15 minutes, 90% of the time, and CTAS 3 to 5 is 20 minutes, 90% of the time. So when we look at CTAS, and it's kind of backwards, but we determine our response time after we already arrive at the patient. It's really more of really like a measurement more tool more than anything about it, because we don't drive differently based upon CTAS because we don't even know what it is till we get there. But when we get there, we grade the CTAS on arrival and then before we leave, and then also on arrival at hospital. And it's an assessment tool to really assess the gravity of the situation and the seriousness of the illness of the patient. So there's 5 levels of CTAS. CTAS 1, which is the exact opposite, and this is where it gets confusing with the code priorities. The code 1's a transfer to a paramedic being sent out of the truck, but a CTAS 1's are most critical. That's a resuscitation, cardiac arrest. The CTAS 2 is somebody like having a stroke, chest pain. CTAS 3 is a little less urgent, mild shortness of breath, resolved seizures. CTAS 4 is less urgent, maybe a laceration, controlled bleeding, urinary tract infection, stable. And a CTAS 5 is really more of a non-urgent or deferrable call. Percentile response time, which really drives our business here, and we think about this a lot. And you'll hear us talk about 8 minutes and 15 minutes, and with the ORH, we talk about 10 minutes. The goal is in critical emergencies to get there as quick as possible. And so we start to look at that, and we try to do the most good for the most amount of people. We can get better response times in when we're close and in the larger, more dense areas where it's more populated. But at the same time, we have to balance that out with response times across the county. And when you look at when we set the targets, it's at a 90 percentile. So the goal is to cover the majority of the people in this amount of time so people can trust it. And so a 90th percentile, really what it does, there's different ways of doing it. If you set the 90th percentile at 15 minutes, 900 of your calls have to be below 15 minutes and 100 can be above. That's really what it boils out to. But the best explanation I've had about a 90th percentile is that it's a balanced perspective that captures performance by the majority of users. So they get to be able to know that they can count on that service in that time. But it also recognizes that there are rare exceptions, and the rare exceptions are distance, weather. Sometimes multiple calls happen. There's nothing worse. You could sit there for 6 hours in a town that does 2 or 3 calls a day, and they come in back to back 5 minutes apart. And then you only have one truck and they're coming from another town. So we can't control when the calls come in or how they come in, but we try to balance coverage across the whole county as best we can. So these are our response times for 2023, very positive, 54.67% for cardiac arrest. And again, that's a 5-minute drive time. These ones here, it's either a defibrillator or paramedic unit getting on site. Generally, it's the paramedic unit getting on site. CTAS 1s is 71.8%, 8 minutes. And sadly, I see this when our opioid crisis is high. A lot of the people we pick up are resuscitation. We have to ventilate them to keep them alive. And sadly, that's why that number is so high. It's been most of it's here in the city. CTAS 2, 91.23. We've had trouble in the past with this number, usually around 87 or 88%. We've been just under that mark, but we have met there this year. I look back and I think about, this year versus last year, busier than the year before, and our response times are better. When you look at the weather does play a role. And when you think about, we had Snowmageddon in 2022, really, but all the way through 2023, we really didn't have a lot of snow. And it does make a difference over a period of time. And I would think that's probably the biggest thing that helped us meet this year, because when I look back the first 2 months of this year versus first 2 months of 2023, our 90th this year is about a minute more than it was last year. And a lot of it is we've had more snow days. So anyways, I try to look at those reasons why, but I think that's probably part of it. But weather does play a role. It does play a role where the calls come in too. Like, we can't predict where the next call is going to be. And the CTAS 3, 4, and 5 are well within the range for those. So I think it's important that we do look at, because we're assessed as a county, but it is good to look at the municipalities broken down. And even though we don't report on this, I think it's good that we bring it here for discussion, and that, the public sees that we are working to improve response times, not only just in the urban areas, but we're looking at improving them in the more rural areas with adding Feversham and Ayton, Thornbury, and Cobble Beach. So when you look at this here, Barbara had a good question this week, and Councillor Breen, and we thought it was worthwhile we talked about it, because we look one thing, we look at Owen Sound and Hanover and how high they are for their CA and CTAS 1. The one driver there, first off, they are busy. They're busier spots, especially Owen Sound. So there's more of these critical calls. The thing is though, we're only looking at the municipality as a whole. So when you measure those targets just as municipality as a whole, we can cover those quite well. But when you compare that to a place like Southgate or Chatsworth or Grey Highlands, you know, they have these urban areas, but then you have such a wide area. It doesn't take much, especially I think in Southgate, there was 4 cardiac arrests. So when you have that and you spread that out, you have to kind of understand the numbers to see what we're kind of up against when you see these low numbers. In 2019, we put this together and I just thought it was good. We shared with Councillor DeBreen. They helped us put together really what the population looked like. So what populations within our 5-minute, 7-minute, 14-minute and 19-minute, you notice we took 1 minute off of those targets of how much we can serve. We do better than what the population can serve because obviously people are in urban areas when they do calls and stuff like that. But overall, we are doing well compared to where our population is, compared to where we're meeting our response times. This is just a picture to show you where for sudden cardiac arrest and CTAS 1s on a realistic drive time, that's how far we can get out of the areas to meet those targets where they're a little bit more difficult. And this was put together by ORH. It's another way of looking at it. This is areas where you can see that we are 0 to 5 minutes with a really dark green. And as the green lightens up, 5 to 7, 7 to 9. And then you can see areas of the county in red where we have trouble getting to in 15 minutes. And if you look at some of the areas that we're looking at, you know, we add in Feversham and the Ayton Base and Thornbury, it'll help, and Cobble Beach, it'll help get rid of those 15-minute areas. I think it's always good to look at 90 percentiles for everything collectively. And in 2023, our 90th was 1521, which is good because we were almost at 16 minutes last year. So that's good that it's come down. Our average response time is now under 8 minutes again. In 2022, we're 19th out of 52 for response times, which is pretty good. I would say really good comparatively when you only look at the size, because we have such a big geographic area. There was only one service that was bigger than us that was in that same response time category. As far as this year for response times and helping with those, this is the year that we add 2 additional trucks, and we are appreciative for that. We can use those resources. They are going to Hanover and Owen Sound. Eventually, the Hanover car will go to Ayton. But even with that, the Hanover car will help Hanover, but it will also help West Grey. If Hanover does a call or Durham does a call, it'll be there to back it up, so we're not sitting in Allen Park. It's the same with Owen Sound. Owen Sound will help Georgian Bluffs and it'll help Meaford. And to a certain extent, it helps Chatsworth, because a lot of the time, Chatsworth and Owen Sound are our busiest bases. Over 40% of our call volume comes out of those 2 bases, particularly in the Owen Sound area. But if we can keep cars in Owen Sound, that keeps Chatsworth and Chatsworth, and it keeps Craigleith and Craigleith and Meaford, so that we're not sitting halfway in between. You don't have Meaford sitting in Owen Sound and Craigleith sitting in Thornbury. So that's really going to help those response times in those areas by, even though it's in that town, there's a wider breadth that we're going to be able to capture. Okay, that's all I have for response times, but we did talk about this just as the senior management and with the warden about the Durham and Chesley emergency closure. We are facing that now. When I wrote this presentation, it actually hadn't closed yet, but then I realized when I'm actually saying it's already closed. So I just want to let you know there's a bit of an error when I said that, but it is closed at night from 5 to 7, and Chesley actually is closed from 5 to 7. With our modeling tool now that we have, we're able to model what this looks like with these closures. We have determined that there is really low numbers going into those hospitals at night. So the impact to us, there is some, but it's small. And we also looked at the Durham base location, and based upon ORH, their statement is that the base is still in the right location. Even though there is only a small impact on our response time, there is considerations. One is longer treatment and transport time, so we'll be with the patients longer. If we go to Hanover, it's not as bad because our base is side by side, so we will clean up if we need to do cleanup there. If we go to Mount Forest, we generally we can use hospital cleaning supplies. We have our own cleaning supplies, and we generally have enough stock in our truck. But if it was a call that was really depleted us, potentially we'd be out of service till we got back to our own base. But that is really a rare situation. The one thing we'll have to watch, and it's not just us going to these peripheral hospitals, but if Hanover gets overloaded with patients, there's a chance we could be on offload delay. So those are considerations. We have had some times where we have been on bypass for our CTAS to 5, C3 to 5, where we take them to other hospitals. because they're inundated. But we haven't seen that yet, but that's something that is a possibility down the road. And this just goes to show, I don't know if you can see it or not, but ORH, they did as a base phasing. I actually asked them to phase in 2025 so we could see some results of the Frugo and the Meaford and some of those changes we're doing, but we just used it as a baseline because all our enhancements are at night. But you can see here, that's the that's the one with it open and then with it closed. And this is the one with the difference. And you can see there, you can see a bit of impact in Southgate and West Gray, but to the overall response time, it makes a difference about 1 second. So, but it is something for us to watch. I think it's good to have this tool. A lot of it before was based upon gut, and gut's good. I think that you always have to listen to your gut, but having numbers to back it up is really important. So just to give you an idea of what we're able to do now with our modeling tool.
Thank you, Kevin. Boy, a lot of information there, a lot of pieces to move around. You do a great job at it. Any questions for Kevin this morning? Councillor Mattress House.
Thank you. Through you, the warden, to a question to staff then. Thank you very much. I do appreciate the breakdown of the municipalities. It helps us be able to bring that picture back to our local communities. And it is, I think it's a good cautionary note to think about those one-off events that you've mentioned that can skew the numbers. My question would be is from my understanding of reading the report and the descriptions about the levels, fractures from physical activity, that would be like I guess if there's a potential for head injury, that would be a 2, but the rest of them would be down to a 3, 4, or 5. And I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, like somebody in severe pain would still be up to a CTAS 2, like, but if they're on severe pain, could be a CTAS 3.
Thank you. And through you, the warden, as a follow-up as well, I'm wondering if do you have access to breaking down those percentages further by rural versus settlement areas for municipalities such as ours, where it is so extensive, the geography is so extensive? I'm just wondering about what those numbers would look like if you looked at everybody in the rural areas versus the calls that are in the more significant population areas. And I imagine that would be the same thing with Southgate and West Gray as well.
Based upon the analytics we have, like for Blue Mountains, it's really under Blue Mountains. And for Southgate, it's broken down into the 3 original municipalities. It can be done though, because there's a long and lat for every call. So it's something that we could access if that was what you would like. But I don't have it at my fingertips. That's not something that I can draw.
Thank you. Councillor Keaveney.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you to Kevin. Kevin, I wonder if I can ask you about increased call volumes. We recognize, and first of all, congratulations on exceeding your response times and continuing to improve those times. That's amazing, and we're very grateful for that. But back to my question then in relation to the increased call volumes, is most of that attributed to growth in the county, do you think? Or what impact does our shortage of family physicians have on the many orphan patients that live in the county, and their preference then to call you over trying to get to a hospital?
My personal opinion is that it's probably a combination of a lot of things. It's a combination of growth, a combination of more tourists. You notice during the pandemic, we hardly had any car accidents, stuff like that. Like call volumes were down during that time. I think that the lack of community resources for people to reach out to and for care in the home contributes to this. I think primary care, I think emergency rooms are used when they can't get access, and same with paramedic services. I always think of paramedic services kind of the canary in the coal mine, because we're really around and we're the first sensitivity for things start to go bad. They call us, and the sensitivity around that. So I think it's a multitude of things.
Didn't I think I recall from ORH's work that demographics and an aging population also?
Yeah, the demand based upon our aging population, I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's in the ORH report that there's going to be a significant demand and it's going to actually increase over the next 10 years. It was quite high. I don't have it at my fingertips, but we go to the ORH report. It does talk about that, about the demand, the amount of calls with our aging population. Sorry, I missed.
Councillor Patterson.
Through you, Mr. Warden, thank you, Kevin, for the presentation. I always appreciate that data. Can you share when fire and rescue is called out? And is there any training between the paramedics and the fire and rescue departments?
So a lot of the tiered response has now been focused on where we know time is of the essence and that a difference can be made by sending fire departments to every medical call. There really is no change in outcome, but there is change in outcome for severe, what we call obvious immediate threats. So that'd be like cardiac arrest, respiratory arrest, choking, car accidents where there's entrapments, and to tell you the truth, all car accidents, we can use the extra hands. There are special circumstances, but that's the majority of the calls that we know. And we're so appreciative of the fire departments. We have really good relationships with the fire departments in Grey County. I don't know if you know Mark Urquhart, but he's a supervisor with us and he's just a real gem. But he's actually our liaison with the fire chiefs, and he comes from a fire background and he's like a real life MacGyver. So he fits in well, but does training with them. And Kyle is, we have lots of paramedics that are firefighters. So even down to the Auto Pulse, when we launched the Auto Pulse, we go up and train with them.
Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you, and through you, Warden. Thank you, Kevin. I just want to thank you for being so quick with a very detailed response over a weekend. It was unexpected and very much appreciated. It really helped put perspective into the numbers. I did want to just tie something together between Councillor Keaveney's comment about, what is driving the change or the increased calls and the lack of family health teams where our orphaned residents that don't have that follow-up, and CAO Wingrove's comment about the aging population. If they're not getting the check-ins with their family health team because of lack or inability to get there, that's going to drive more calls as well. So I think it's all tied together. And how do we solve that so that we're not having those emergency calls? And it comes back to that paramedic, thank you. The paramedic team that goes in and does some of those health checks, if that can be maintained and expanded upon, that will help alleviate those emergency calls, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I just heard this morning, I was saying to Kim, we're up to 478 patients now on our CP program. That's not including our clinics, our SOS, where we carry 100 to 150 patients at any given time. So that program is really booming. I do sit on the Primary Care Advisory Council for Ontario Health West, and there is like most of this group is physicians, and they are having a real look at how to attach people to primary care. Like that is one of the things that they are working on. So it's not as if people aren't working on it, but lack of primary care is a need. There is a problem.
Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Good morning, County Council. Thanks again, Kevin, for all the work that you and your department does. In your map with the response times, how does a neighboring county assist in lowering response times? So there was a red area in the western part of Sullivan Township, close proximity to Chesley. I'm just wondering why that would be red when there is, I believe, an ambulance situated in Chesley.
Yeah, when we did those modeling, that we took into account them coming across border. So for code 4 calls, there is no border. The border is seamless. So the thing is I don't know Bruce County and their coverage of Chesley, whether through those years, if they had Chesley at night, because that's 2018 to 2022. So they are at night now. So that would probably make a difference there as well. But also Chesley is an area that, you know, that they obviously would pull, you know, different areas too. So, but it is seamless for across the border.
Okay, all right, Councillor Eccles.
Thank you, and through you, Warden, to Mr. McNabb. In the report there, you said that Chesley and Durham and Chesley were closed from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Chesley's also closed every weekend as well too, correct? That just wasn't noted in there.
I'd have to check that. I believe that is correct. That it is weekends too, but I'd have to check that. Yeah, I can look up on our operational log because it goes out on that, but I'm pretty sure it is too.
And if I could, I don't know just how that's going to be enclosed, but being open 7 days a week through the day. And as you said, from the numbers that we see, the emergency calls in the evening from, I think it was 10 until 6 a.m., 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is less than one per day. But in the weekends at Chesley, those numbers changed now and being closed. How that may affect, we may see some effect going forward on that when they're closed 24 hours for Saturday, Sunday on the weekends. Challenge.
Okay. Are we ready for the vote? I'll call it. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. The next report is a Ministry of Health Service Review final report, and Kevin is going to be giving that one as well. If I had a mover and seconder, Councillor Keaveney, Councillor Patterson. Thank you. Kevin?
So we're pretty excited about this, even though it seems like such a long time ago, that this is our Ministry of Health Service Review. And we really only have one opportunity every 3 years to show the ministry about how we, you know, we do what's required to run an ambulance service at the core of it. So so the recommendation is that we receive this report for information, and you'll see the final document as attached to the report. So to meet the requirements of providing land ambulance services, every 3 years, we have to undergo a service review, and it's similar to what a hospital accreditation would be. We completed the most recent review in December of 2022, and it took us almost a year to get the final report. We got it on January 10th. The findings that we met the requirements of the service review, and we have a license now to operate it until the service until June 2nd, 2026, which is interesting because we're really just wrapping this up, and next year, you know, probably in October 2025, they'll be back again. So during COVID, it did unprecedented times. I'm sure everybody's tired of hearing that word, but it was for us and also for the ministry to complete these reviews. So they had to come up with a modified way of doing reviews because they didn't want to come on site. So normally they would show up here with a team of 10 or 12 people. There would be 3 or 4 people looking at administration, and then there would be, you know, 6, 7 people on the road looking at our stations or trucks, assessing patient care, looking at our vehicles for maintenance and stuff like that. But this review was strictly more or less documentation, providing evidence through documentation, but they still looked at administration, operations, and quality improvement. Again, there was no ride outs, and the ambulance service review does not look at our financial portions at all. So the final report outlines observations the review team makes, and from their review, there was 3 observations made. And comparatively to 2019, when there were 6. And when I think about the review and what we faced during the review, and it was unprecedented times, and we still had to run the service like the requirements of the ministry. And to get only 3 observations, I think that's a really good thing, comparatively to the number of questions and answers and evidence that we have to produce. So the 3 observations, the first one was around ensuring the paramedics ensure they have the knowledge and skills are maintained. This came down to us, if they released a document, equipment standards or something like that, is to ensure that every document that we receive, that the paramedics acknowledge they received it and they understand it. So we missed a few through there, they having them acknowledge. But we have fixed that since. We release everything immediately. And then we have a learning management program that every quarter they have to go in and sign off that they received and acknowledge all these documents. They can become quite lengthy after each quarter. The next one was around not meeting our CTAS 2 targets. And so that we talked to them about what our plans are with ORH to meet those plans. And the last one was around staffing. Just like any service during COVID, staffing was an issue. We did have down staffing through some of the times. So we have definitely improved from there. We're not out of the woods yet, but definitely a lot better than what it was for staffing. So the final report, the issues have been addressed in that. We have had an inspector follow up with us. Grey County was commended for its efforts for preparation and also the quality assurance and continued quality improvement programs that we have in place. So just in summary, takes a lot of work to be able to meet the requirements of this review. There's not uncommon for some places to get 10, 12, or not even be successful in a review. So for us to only have 3, I believe it's very speaks well of the staff and support that we have. So from the paramedics to our management team to council and the CAO. And I can't say enough about all our support as well from transportation, finances, human resources, GIS, IT. It really takes an entire team to be able to do this. And we're really proud of where we're at. And again, but we still continue to try to improve upon the service all the time.
Thank you, Kevin, and congratulations again on that successful certification. I'm not surprised, quite honestly. You guys do a great job. Are there any questions for Kevin on that one? Councillor Gray.
Thanks, and through you, Warden Milne. My only question is, anecdotally, you hear nowadays of individuals' driver habits not being what they should be on some of the roadways and inhibiting the flow or the passage of emergency vehicles. Do you document in any way, shape, or form, I guess, the occurrence rate, perhaps, of is this getting worse? Is it becoming more prevalent? What kind of an impact is it having on your resources and your responses? And then on an item like that, where then you are able to pass that along as a kind of a direct conduit to the province, to see if the province can kind of work with transportation or the Attorney General in terms of increasing fines, punishment, whatever might be necessary. But it is something that we hear. You see some messaging out there occasionally in terms of, you know, be aware, pull over. But what kind of, you know, I guess, what are you hearing from your end and how do you respond to it?
I would say it's a rare occurrence that we hear like directly from a paramedic that somebody didn't get out of the way. Like I think about myself on the road. Safety is your number one concern. You do want to go like and get there as fast as you can safely. But as far as like saying that people aren't getting over and getting out of the way, like I think that people are generally pretty good. You see like drivers try their best. So sometimes you think about downtown, how congested it is. It's hard to push people because there's really nowhere to go. Right? And the harder you push, sometimes you cause confusion. So it's to say it doesn't happen, but it's not as if it's something out there. They have changed the laws around pulling over for emergency vehicles. Like as far as like when we're on the side of the road for safety, that's been really welcomed. I think there's a lot more awareness of that, like slow down, move over if you're able to. We're a lot more aware now with blocker vehicles, like actually blocking. You'll see car accidents now, where initially if the supervisor's the first one there, they'll block, but then we'll actually be blocked by fire trucks because there's a real issue with people crashing into accident scenes. So those are kind of things that we're aware of. But overall, yeah, I still think people try to do their best. There are people that sometimes aren't paying attention, but I don't like, it's not something that's on as far as awareness as a big concern.
Anyone else? Any questions? Call a question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Kevin. One more report from Kevin regarding the sole source ambulance purchases for 2024 and 2025. Would someone care to move that, please? Councillor Mackey and Councillor Dickert. Kevin.
Great. I'll just read out the recommendation that report PSR CW 0524 regarding the sole source of ambulance purchases for 2024 and 2025 be received, and the purchase of 7 ambulances be sole sourced from Demers Ambulances, and that staff be authorized to order the 3 budgeted ambulances in 2024 for the deployment enhancement, and 4 ambulances that are scheduled in 2025 ahead of budget approval, and that action be taken prior to council approval as per section 26.6B of procedural bylaw 513422. So a bit about the background of this, and it's pretty much the same story that I came here with last year. Nothing really has changed other than the price has gone up further. So the Ministry of Health, they regulate the vendors of who can provide ambulances. It's a very strict standard for ambulances to be built in the province. At one time, there was 2 vendors, Demers and Crestline. In 2018, they merged into one company. They still sell their separate vehicles, but they really are one company. So it really does create problems when we talk about purchasing bylaws and come to get to go to tender for these vehicles. Since the merger, we've also had COVID, but we have seen a significant increase in ambulances, 118,000 or 67% over the last 5 years, which is roughly a 10.82% increase. So Demers, again, and Crestline continue to build their separate designs, but it really is only one company that we can get a quote from. Over the years, we have standardized our fleet. What we would do is we would get more or less a 5-year pricing commitment, be able to keep those same type of trucks. This helps the paramedics to be able to know where equipment is, but it also helps with maintenance and repairs. So the mechanics know the trucks and they have the equipment on hand to fix them. Before the enhancement, our capital plan, we had 15 ambulances in the system. It was 9 ambulances for frontline, and then we'd have 6 spares that you have to have available for breakdowns and maintenance. During COVID-19, we've seen significant challenges with manufacturing of ambulances. And what we're seeing now is that we normally do a tender in February, and we'd have the ambulance by October. Now we're looking 20 and almost 24 months out before we get these vehicles. So it really, even just being aware of the vehicles that are ordered, as of today, if this goes through, we'll have 11 vehicles on order, which we've never ever seen before in our history. So for the enhancement plan from 2024 to 2033, that was approved through the budget, is what we've done is we've increased that by 7 ambulances, which will be 5 frontline to take on those new shifts that'll be over the next 10 years, and to add 2 spares. The results being added in 2024, what it will be then, it will be 3 being added in 2024, 1 in 2025, and 3 in 2027. And these ambulances are on a 6-year cycle. When we looked at the original plan, which had been upstaffing 8 12-hour shifts, we would have needed 7 trucks because one's a 24-hour car in 2031. But with the budget reductions, again, we dropped that from 11 ambulances down to 7. The one other thing that's changed with Demers is that they don't guarantee the price anymore because it's so far out. They try to do their best to predict the price, but they don't guarantee it. As an example, the ambulances we ordered in 2022, we got them at the end of 2023, and they increased about $6,000. So Demers has provided us with a quote on the ambulances of $295,882.46 net of HST. We did look for efficiencies. We reduced some items in there, saved $10,000 a unit, trying to keep these prices down. So it would have even been worse if we didn't save that money. The 2024 budget includes 7 ambulances, 3 to meet the needs of the deployment enhancement. And this is where it kind of gets confusing because we ordered the ambulances last year. We had to move them ahead into this year's budget. So there's really 4 that we ordered last year in this year's budget. Plus, we're asking for the 3 for the enhancement. And then because they're so far behind, we're actually wanting to order next year's ambulances, which is 2025. So a total of 4. So at the end of the day, there's 11 ambulances in order. One savings that we're looking at is The power load units is to reduce them and use them twice over, so we will be having some savings there. There will be less when we sell them at the end, but there will be an upfront savings. It's roughly $42,000 for a power load unit. So around price increases, the county's seen the price of ambulances increase significantly. 2 ambulances were ordered in 2022 at a price of $239,302. In comparison, the cost of 2 ambulances in 2023 was $261. The price increased by $34,000 or 13.2% since 2023, or $55,000, 23.6% since 2022. We hope that by ordering these ambulances early, there will be some savings. That every year that goes by, the price does go up. So there may be potentially be some savings by ordering early. And just around legislative requirements, the vehicles have to meet the vehicle standard. I know that's a lot of stuff and it is confusing, but I guess really what it breaks down to is we ordered 4 vehicles last year. We moved those forward this year because we didn't get them last year, so we had to put them in this year's budget. With the approval of the enhancement, we need 3 trucks to add the 2 plus a spare. So that's 3. And then we're asking to be able to purchase 4 more that would be purchased in 2025, just because we probably won't get them till 2026. And if we don't keep ordering a year ahead, we won't have them. And I don't really see much choice right now. We've delegated to the minister on this problem, and our association's talking about it. The lack of suppliers in the marketplace definitely is impacting it. But we really don't have a lot of choice. That's the thing.
Thank you, Kevin. And it almost sounds like a high school math question, you know? You add this many, take this many away, but split this one and divide that one. How many ambulances does Kevin have? Holy mackerel. Okay, yeah, and also, you know, I don't know, I'm sure everybody gets the questions. Why the elevated budget numbers this year? Well, inflation is only running at 3%. Well, 67% in 5 years. That's a lot more than 3 a year. So there you go. That's just one example. Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you, Warden. And actually, the timing of the report was excellent through you to Kevin. I had an opportunity, a resident had asked about the budget and the increase and how the county plays into those things. And I use this as an example. And your jaw dropped, you know, $300,000 for an ambulance. You have to order 2 years in advance and there's no guarantee on the price. And to Warden Milne's equation, he's like, and how far were they traveling and the speed and all of that other to come up with an answer? But there's just no guarantees, and we're at the mercy of a one source supplier. There's, again, how do you answer that question? It's like, how come there is such an increase? But here's just one example that we have no control over.
Councillor Gray, and then I'll go to Councillor Bordignon.
Thanks. And through you, Warden Milne, you kind of touched on a little bit, you preambled or led into my question. The report indicated 15 ambulances in the 10-year capital plan. 11 is the number that we've circled right now in terms of what's kind of in order or in process. 7 of those units are scaling up the service or enhancements. So is the projection then from that 15 in the 10-year capital plan that from 2026, 27, we will only have 4 more ambulances to replace? And then what is the cycle for replacement that we currently have? You touched upon the reserve contributions needing to go up, but what is the standard cycle that we've been working with? Thanks.
So as of today, like with no enhancement, we run with 15 ambulances, and which 9 are frontline and 6 are spare. And Garrett's helping with these ratios here, but roughly 1.5. We've actually, when we reach our full enhancement, and that'll be starting in 2027, we'll have 14 frontline ambulances and we'll have 8 spares. So we've actually reduced the number of spares in the system. But we, we think about savings, we're trying to reduce where we can. The mileage and turnover, we use 6 years. Some places use 5, I'll use 6. Potentially, for some spares, we might be able to get 7, but a lot of our, like, we have trucks right now that are close to 400,000 kilometers. We usually, 275 to low 3s, 350, but there's a lot of trucks right now, at least a few anyways, that are really around that 400,000, which is getting pretty high. Yeah, so like having those ratios of spares, though, it doesn't take long to run out of spares. Like, you need spare trucks around, especially when you have change of shift. If a crew's out during the day and the night car comes in, we don't have a crew, you can't get them off. So having the spares for maintenance and have spares for change of shift are pretty important. We went on the lower side of this. It's something we're gonna have to watch. But we were trying to, maximize the efficiency of the amount of vehicles we had to buy. As you can see, we cut 4.
Can't imagine a GM lasting that long, but good for Pat's Mechanics. They do a great job out there, keeping those things on the road. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those, wait, oh, sorry, Councillor Bordenio, my mistake. Go ahead, Peter.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you to Kevin. First, thank you for juggling everything you're doing with Sole Source. I just have one question. It's on the end of your report there's no guarantee on pricing whatsoever. Is there not a maximum based on or targets they have to prove? I see they went up 6,000. Is there any cap saying by percentage for the ambulances for when they're delivered, saying to a cap of 10%, or is it strictly market factors that you're dealing with when you get the final bill?
We've asked them about that, about being able to guarantee a price of even the chassis or the conversion on either side, but you can't get them to guarantee anything right now. I wish we could. The question has been asked for sure. Like, I don't like this either.
Thank you. Councillor Kentner.
When you buy a new car, as we see, Mr. Warden, you're even year to year, a certain percentage of the increase in cost is really enhancements, higher technology, more bells and whistles and so on. And I would imagine in an ambulance, there's a great potential for added cost just through changing technology. And can you estimate, what percentage of the increase might actually be for more value in the vehicle?
I think one of the, as far as a significant cost is the power load. When we first bought power load, they were 25,000, now they're 42. So they went up significantly. We actually reduced the amount of the truck by 10,000. We've talked about this in our capital planning about going away from Panasonic Toughbooks, that we're actually going to an iPad, which takes less infrastructure up front. So we're able to get rid of a Phoenix boom mount and a have a stock, which that was probably $3,000. We were able to get, one thing that was a gas-fired Pro Heat that really doesn't have this efficiency that we thought it would. It's not really user-friendly because in times of cold, it doesn't keep the window clear. So, and then also when they break, they're expensive to fix. So we removed that. That was $5,000. So we tried to look to see if there's anything we could cut out. The units really haven't changed. I think the only thing that we've added is another cabinet, which was $500. But a lot of stuff we tried to cut versus add. But the power load definitely pushes that price forward. But us being able to use them for 2 cycles, that helps in that as well.
Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Warden. Kevin, you mentioned earlier in your presentation that you, or at least the association, had delegated to the ministry. What was the response that you received back? Because this is a huge problem for the entire province. And are we anticipating that the Ministry of Health is going to do anything about more than just one vendor?
Through you, Mr. Warden, to Councillor Mackey. We have delegated at AMO at least twice on this matter. We asked them to consider establishing a vendor of record, at least for a floor price for all of the services. I mean, right now, we are all, every one of us competing for that one resource. So either establish a vendor of record to establish a price that we can all use to plan effectively, or approve some competition in the marketplace. The fact that Demers and Crestline were, able to merge without that, kicking off some sort of a competition concern is concerning. We did not get any confirmation or any response back from the ministry that they might be taking action on this. That may well be happening behind the scenes, but it's not something that's been communicated to us.
I know there's some local manufacturing down at the south end of the township. I'm sure they could slam something together a hell of a lot cheaper than what this is, but that's out of my hands. All right, any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Why don't we take a 10-minute recess and we'll come back and finish the last three items with the consent item. So we'll do that. 1 minute warning. Thank you, Rob. We'll bring this meeting back to order. The next report is in regards to the Glenelg Klondike and the mayhem that's happening down there. Sarah Johnson is here to give that report. Someone care to move it, please? Counselor Keaveney, thank you. And Counselor Dickert, thank you, was seconded. Sarah, welcome and good morning.
It's been a while since I pressed that button. Thank you again, Warden. Good morning. This report is a follow-up report from a report that was presented last January regarding trespass and damage issues that were occurring in the Glenelg Klondike Forest property. From that report, there was direction from council to explore some options that could, number one, solve trespass issues, reduce potential for damage in the forest, and help minimize potential conflict between the motorized and non-motorized uses. First slide I included. So this is in the report as well, but this is an overview of the property and some of the things that have been put in place. So as it's not showing up very well on the slide here, but you can see where we've got gates, where we've got signage, where we have our trails. And then unfortunately, those red little dots are where ATVs are still known to be accessing the property. What's not shown on this map, and because just of my experience in this role and knowing what we have done in the past, was some boulders that have also been put in place. And those two red dots along Hamilton Lane, I believe there were boulders placed in those areas, but obviously they're not working. But these are the measures that I wanted to show in this map that have been taken to date to try and mitigate this issue. So what I want to discuss today is the main areas that staff investigated when it came to the potential solutions with regards to the trespass issue. One of which was have a conversation with West Grey staff about a number of things, including the ORV bylaw, their complaint process, as well as a consideration of a stop up and close of a portion of Hamilton Lane. Some bylaw enforcement options that we could take with the county, and then a consideration to make the trails in the forest multi-use. So when we met with West Grey staff, we discussed the bylaw and the removal of the road allowances in roads from ATV use. One of the big takeaways from that conversation was removing those roads would remove the use, yes, but it would remove the use from everyone and all users, those using it legally and those using it not legally. And it would also create additional bylaw enforcement issues, as in all likelihood, the ones that are unlawfully using those areas are probably going to continue to do so. So as a result, staff Gray County staff were no longer recommending the recommendation of the previous report to make the request to West Gray to update their ORB bylaw. The other discussion points that we had with West Gray was their complaint process, which is directly related to bylaw matters. And again, if we remove road allowances, there is no more mechanism for them to assist in that capacity. And obviously, it would be less effective to control the problem. It's also really important to note that the unauthorized ATV use in our county forest is not strictly a bylaw issue with West Gray. It's a Gray County matter as well, because their ORV bylaw only applies to roads and road allowances. Similar to the bylaw issues that I just went over, the removal of a portion of Hamilton Lane through a stop up and close, which was suggested with regards to the previous report, again, creates those issues where we're removing the ability for West Gray to enforce their bylaw, and it doesn't create, changing ownership doesn't really remove the unauthorized uses. So as a result, staff are not recommending any of those proposed uses that were discussed with West Gray. The next item that we investigated was the consideration of bylaw enforcement. And this option requires a bylaw be drafted, but not only for this property, but for all county forest properties, as well as in all likelihood, the CP Rail Trail. And then we would require someone to enforce the bylaw. And that the county right now is currently not equipped with this staff, with staff or with contract staff to enforce the bylaw, and a bylaw of this nature. And so at this time, we wouldn't be recommending that as well. The final item that was discussed at the last meeting, or sorry, the meeting that was with the previous report, was the consideration of making the trails in this forest multi-use, working with the club and trying to have them monitor and help maintain those trails so that the trespass issues became less. When we look at these types of requests, we use when we look at these types of requests, we use the Recreational Trails Master Plan, and there's some tests that we need to, there's criteria that needs to be met. And those criteria are, is the new use consistent with the long-term preservation of the forest and land? Is the new use compatible with the existing uses and the infrastructure that is already there? And is enforcement an issue? And does the county have the resources to provide adequate enforcement and protection if this new use is introduced? Well, as we've already previously discussed, we know that we can't meet those tests. And so this was not an option that we would be recommending at this time. So what are we recommending? To provide a little bit of an update, we have had some conversations with the Glenelg Ski Club since the last report, and they have noted that there has been a reduction of these trespass issues. They still exist. We and our outside staff have also noted that the signage has remained intact. So that's also encouraging. These, along with the other methods that were noted in the report, such as having staff be present a little bit more frequently in the busy season, working with the local police force, increasing education through the local ATV club. All of these things, we are recommending that we continue to do these things, and that the existing measures that we've already put in place would continue. In addition to that recommendation, we are also recommending that once the harvest is complete, because there is a harvest occurring in this forest presently, that the repairs that are required for those sections that were previously damaged be completed. So that is what I had today. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions for Sarah's report? Councilor Gray.
Just one question. When you're talking signage, there's more frequently individuals now that are able to gain access to trails with e-bikes. And it's not just, you know, gas powered engines that are causing forest degradation now, but you can have a lot of fun with getting into areas now with e-bikes and similar means. Does your signage consider, I guess, emerging trends? I think of 3-stage in Collingwood area that certainly has had troubles with individuals leaving what were marked trails even. But e-bikes becoming more common are also being a bigger concern now in some areas of sensitive forest areas. So just wondered about what your signage contemplates.
So I know that the signage in particular, in this location, I believe it is strictly related to ATV use. Along the trail, on the CP rail trail, which we often use interchangeably with our forest properties, we state that the uses that are permitted, and in accordance with X, Y, and Z. In the case of ATVs, it says with a permit, because we have an agreement with the club to do that for someone to use if they are permitted through that. So it's certainly something that's on our radar, but we don't have specific ones that speak to e-bikes in particular. But yeah, it's definitely becoming more of a common call that I get with regards to those uses for sure. So it's something we'll be looking into.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Warden. Thanks, Sarah. My question, I guess, is in regards to the discussions with the ATV clubs. I know they have a warden program that they operate on our rail trail. And I mean, that's the only enforcement I've ever seen on our rail trail. So are they actually legislated at all to be able to do anything to protect the rail trail? Or is it just volunteers with a vest on? Or can you just describe what authority they do have? Thanks.
Through you, Warden. You're correct. They don't have an ability to enforce, but what the club that we use or that we work with is the Dufferin Gray ATV Club, and they have partnerships with both West Gray Police as well as the OPP, and they will come out on patrols with them, and they will assist in any way with enforcement issues as they arise.
Thank you. Any other questions? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Sarah. The next item is regarding the Midwest Cooperative Services, the potential purchase of leased lands in the town of Dundalk. Kevin's going to be leading us through, which is or Randy, sorry. Jeez. Yeah. It's the same Randy that I know, but I just thought I'd try out a new name today. We've heard so much from Kevin today, but anyway, I'll stop. Randy, welcome. Sorry, Randy. I need a mover in a second, or Councillor Eccles and Councillor Body. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And is it good afternoon now, or is it good morning still? I'm not sure, we're close. Now I know how Scott feels, because I'm holding up now between you and lunch, so I'll try and make this as quick as I can. So following direction from council that was provided last year, staff have investigated the potential sale of county-owned lands that are in Dundalk that are currently leased to Midwest Co-op. Lease agreement has been in place with Midwest since 2004, and these lands are adjacent to the CP Rail Trail. So the map on the screen, which I'll pull up now, has the lands shown in red there are the lands that are currently leased to Midwest Co-op. The county initially obtained these lands in 2004 as part of the CP Rail Line property acquisition. Prior to the county obtaining the CP Rail property, Midwest, which was previously known as Huron Bay Co-op, had a lease agreement in place with CP at that time for the subject lands. And those same terms have carried over year upon year into what's the current lease agreement that's between the county and Midwest. Midwest has been responsible for the payment of the property taxes on the lands, and they also currently pay an annual lease rate of just over $4,000, which staff believe is quite a bit low, less than fair market value. The county has permitted Midwest to redevelop and expand the buildings on the leased land, including the construction of a fertilizer plant. Midwest is also proposing an addition to one of those buildings on the leased land. The current lease does not provide for a purchase option and was written to protect the county from any costs that may occur should the lease agreement between Midwest and the county come to an end. The current lease also indicates that the buildings be demolished upon termination or expiration of the lease agreement, and the lands be leveled and repaired and returned back to a condition that's suitable to the county. There is also an additional clause in the lease that provides the county with the option to provide notice to the tenant to leave the buildings on the lands and surrender them in a neat and clean condition, which would essentially cause the buildings and improvements to become the property of the county. Despite the terms of the current lease, however, it's never been the county's intent, based on research and looking into some things, it's never been the county's intent to own or operate the buildings that have been built and constructed and paid for by Midwest. These buildings and structures do not align with the county's long-term interests or policy goals. There are two potential options that could be considered to sell the leased lands to Midwest. And the recommendation that's before committee today would essentially allow either option to be considered by Midwest. So it would keep both those options open, depending on how Midwest would like to proceed and move forward, with the ultimate goal at some point to sell the lands, either now or later this year or in sometime in the future. Both options would require the current land lease agreement to be terminated, and that's being recommended by our external legal lawyers to the cleanest option would be to just terminate the current lease agreement based on both these options. Well, option one, terminate the lease agreement at the end of the term of the current lease agreements. This lease agreement currently automatically renews September 30th of every year. So we would provide notice and terminate the lease on September 30th, and then agree to sell the land to Midwest for its fair market value. Both County Council and Midwest would need to agree on this option. And one would, like I said, have to provide notice, at least 90 days written notice upon for the termination to occur. The county could also agree to not require the buildings be demolished once the lease agreement expires. I think that's Midwest desire is they've obviously spent a lot of money to build these buildings over the years. And so that would be also part of the motion, as you can see that's before you today. Midwest could then purchase the lands following the expiration of the current land lease agreement. So that could occur on or after October 1st of this year, based on an appraised value or a real estate valuation for the lands, not including the buildings and structures. Option two would be to terminate the existing lease agreement and enter into a new lease agreement with Midwest. This new lease agreement could include a purchase option for the appraised value of the land. As part of the new lease, an escalating fair market lease value for the lands can also be included with the lease premises being appraised again as vacant lands. No matter what option is picked or pursued, what we're also recommending, no matter what option, is that the county would retain the 20-meter corridor of the CP Rail Trail. There will be a requirement to deal with any of the encroachments that are currently on the CP Rail Trail lands. A lot of those have already been removed or are planned to be removed by Midwest. The fertilizer plant does encroach onto what we would consider the 20-meter CP Rail Trail lands that the county would retain. So we could deal with that through an easement agreement or an encroachment agreement with Midwest. We would also recommend that any trail crossings between the buildings. So they own, Midwest also owns a building, you can see on the maps that says feed mill. So that's partially on lands that are owned by the Southgate, and partially on the CP Rail Trail lands that the county would retain. Our understanding is that their long-term plans are to demolish that building and to rebuild solely on the lands that are currently leased to Southgate. So they remove that current encroachment that's on the CP Rail Trail property. So again, those are all details that can be worked out into a new arrangement with Midwest, and depending on whatever option is pursued. There are some trail crossings that they have between the feed mill property and the fertilizer plant. And you can kind of see it on the air photo there. There's a bit of a trail crossing that goes in between the fertilizer plant. As part of the Dundalk Medical Clinic, I don't know if some of the councils will recall, there's going to be some trail improvements along this stretch. Right now, it's not a really well-defined trail. It's in some cases, you can see it's just a kind of almost like an open parking area, so to speak, or an open driveway in some cases in between some of these buildings. So as part of those trail improvements with the medical clinic, we would look to redefine that trail and look to properly sign and design a proper crossing in between those buildings, again, with the safety of the CP Rail Trail users in mind. So we would recommend those be done regardless of whatever option is considered by Midwest. If the lease land is to be sold or the lease continues under a new lease agreement with a purchase option, the leased lands would have to be declared as surplus in accordance with our current sale and acquisition of land policy and procedure. We would declare the land surplus. They would occur once the new lease agreement has been executed, if that option is pursued, or we would do that all as part of the termination of the current lease agreement if Midwest chooses to purchase right away. It's recommended that the value of the leased lands be appraised as vacant land, as noted earlier. The county's external counsel has reviewed this matter and supports a decision to terminate the existing lease and offering Midwest the opportunity to either purchase the leased land at fair market value or to continue leasing to Midwest at fair market rental. Again, with an option to purchase in the future. So should these lands be divested, there would be a future staff report to council, including a draft purchase and sale agreement that we would bring back to council for your consideration. And if the option is to do a new lease agreement, we would bring that lease agreement back to council for your consideration as well. So we do have some closed session content that staff would be interested in speaking to council. So our recommendation would be to go into closed session to talk about the valuations of the lease lands.
Thank you, Randy. So would someone care to move that we go into closed session? Councillor Eccles, seconded by Councillor Mackey. All those in favor? That is carried. So we'll just take a moment to go into closed session. I'm not sure who needs to. Randy, Kim, and
Thanks.
Scott.